Well, today I would like to talk about some techniques for starting a new design. And in case you've forgotten, we're designing a gallery space. And this gallery is going to be for a specific artist. So we're not going to need all these tables and things, okay? And this ultimate goal of our creation of this gallery, the kind of end result, is going to be a nice presentation drawing of this particular project. So there's a couple things we want to do to kind of clean up the model at this stage of the game, things that you probably don't want to be seeing. First of all, you'll want to delete anything that was from the existing conditions. Now, if I was in an office working and somebody had done all these measurements for existing conditions, I should warn you, you shouldn't delete anything from the existing conditions when you're working in an office. Instead, there is a demolish button. Okay, and I'll just leave that open for a second. You can see that it works pretty easily. You just whack objects with the demolish button and they disappear. Now, in our case, we're not going to be doing any demolition drawings or anything like that. So it's a little less important. So I'm going to just undo that. It's fine in our case to delete things that we won't be needing. In this case, we won't need this bar, and we won't need all these tables and chairs for now. In fact, you can even delete a lot of the text. And like we learned earlier, if I wanted to delete all of something, for example, these dimensions, I can right-click on that object and choose Select All Instances, either in the current view or in the entire project. I'll just go with the view for now, and I can just whack the Delete key, and away they go. Okay. Now, the text, I may save that for later as my new design develops. Okay. And I may also want to leave in the sections and the elevations for convenience. Okay, we probably don't need this wall, but I'm actually going to borrow this wall and show you a few things. Now, what I want to do, we're going to leave these bathrooms in here on the first floor. We'll leave that as a kind of back of house space. Up on the second floor, oh, and by the way, don't delete any of the exterior walls, the plumbing wall, or the columns. Don't delete those. You need those. Leave all that stuff in there, just the movable furniture and things like that. I think I'm going to copy this guy, go up to level 2. There isn't a whole lot on level 2. I'm going to paste in my little wall here so I have something to play with. Oh, except there's a little flat person. I think I'll get rid of those, that flat person. Up on the second floor, there's a couple things to note. First of all, these walls, and I noticed this on a bunch of people, and it was a mistake that I made. These walls actually don't need to go all the way up to the second floor. If you hold down Control, you can select a bunch of these walls. These are just the walls for the toilet room on the first floor. We don't need to see those up here on the second floor. But don't delete them. If I delete them, they will disappear on the first floor. So if you remember from last week, or last lecture, we were able to use this section box to kind of crop away parts of the model. And this is actually a good way you can kind of see that those walls are really not needed here on the second floor. They're really just for the first floor. So I'm going to use Control, select the 3 walls. When I do that, up here on the options toolbar, there is the option to attach the top of these walls. If I just click on that, I can now select an object to attach them to. You have to have an object to attach them to in order for this to work, but in this case, it will stretch them down to the first floor. Okay, and this is just a quick way of doing it. You could do it in section as well. So what I'd like to do is turn this second floor into a kind of meeting room with a door and a big picture window in it. And what I'm going to do, I'll show you some basic techniques and and then I'll show some more advanced techniques. I'll leave it up to you as to how much challenge you want to put yourself into. Basically, if the requirement is that you get a basic window in there, but if you're a more advanced student, particularly those students who are taking this class for honors credit, I would encourage you to take the harder route and do something more difficult. But anyway, all right, let's just start with the basics. First of all, and perhaps the 3D view is the easiest way to see this. I'm going to put this into a shaded view. Just makes it a little easier to see different objects. Okay. What you want to do, if you want to create like a giant window, okay, we've already seen that you can create windows just by inserting a window component. However, sometimes those windows are really glass walls. The difference between a glass wall with a frame and a window is a little subtle, so maybe it's more of a philosophical difference. But anyway, I'll show you. There's a couple of different things, ways you can approach this. First of all, you can just take a wall that you've drawn and choose Edit Type here in the Properties menu, and then you can duplicate the wall and say this is going to be a glass half wall. Okay. And then edit the structure of that wall. So choose Edit. Again, like we learned before, you can change these dimensions. I'll make it 2 inches thick just to give it some beef. And then if we preview it in section mode, we can decide if we want any base or not. I think actually for this type of wall, I'm not going to have any bases. I'm just going to delete these 2 bases because it would look pretty funny to have a wood base on a glass wall. Okay, how that frame might look is probably another thing to consider. But anyway, and finally, when you do edit the structure, you can tell Revit to use glass for the structure. You just sorry, I did that a little too fast. Here where it says material, stretch this out a little bit. Normally it says by category, whatever that means. If you click in the cell where it says by category, there are these mysterious 3 dots that show up. Those 3 dots mean that there is a menu under there. I'll click on those 3 dots, and lo and behold, we come up with something called the Material Browser. Let me stretch this out a little bit. And the Material Browser is our first kind of foray into materials that are in the project. We're not seeing a whole lot of them right now, but basically glass is a material that we can apply. I'll hit OK, and then now you can see it says glass in here. It's 2 inches thick of glass, which is pretty darn thick. You will even see the section change, and click OK. And now what you'll see is that this is a glass wall. Okay, so now I'm shaded in shaded view, so you can get a sense. And that's a really kind of quick and easy way to create a glass wall. And this is very nice if you happen to have, I don't know, curving walls that are glass. It's a quick and kind of dirty way to make the glass wall. Now, glass walls are all fine and dandy and easy to manipulate here. I can control their height. I can even drag the bottom up off the floor if I wanted to. However, here, maybe I better attach that back down to the floor here. Okay, there we go, fine. One thing that you can do is create a special kind of wall called a curtain wall, okay? And this is great. Maybe I will drag this guy up a little bit. Let's say you want a window frame with a bunch of subdivisions in the window frame, or you have a floor-to-ceiling conference room wall. Ours, I was hoping, would not be floor-to-ceiling. Anyway, what you can do is change the wall type to something called storefront system. And this is a standard system that is in Revit automatically in the template. You'll notice there are 3 here: curtain wall, exterior glazing, and storefront. We'll start with storefront because it's easier. If you choose that one, what will happen is Revit will basically convert that wall into the storefront system, it will turn it into glass with what are called mullion frame around it, vertical and horizontal elements. Okay, all of these elements, as you manipulate the wall, these elements will adapt. Okay, so they will change in height. And what you'll also see is that there are subdivisions. As the wall gets taller, it starts to add more and more pieces. Ooh, except I've gone above the section plane there. You might say, well, what if I don't want those little things? Can't I delete them? It's actually kind of hard to delete them. Okay, so that's why we have the third option, which is the custom curtain wall. But anyway, for right now, this storefront system works really well. And I'll choose Edit Type and show you how this thing is spaced. First of all, there's a vertical grid. Let's slide this over. That is spaced 5 feet apart. You can change that. You can make that 2 feet apart and apply. You see how it makes extra bits and pieces. That's the maximum spacing. There's also a horizontal grid, which is basically the top and the bottom, and this every time you get to 8 feet, you get another one of these horizontal grids. Well, you can also make that some other number, 4 feet, and apply. And you should see extra pieces, or here we'll make it even 3. I don't know how tall this thing is. Okay. So you can see how you can pretty quickly kind of customize this wall to get regular spacing just by fiddling around with the properties. You can also change the interior mullions and the exterior mullions to be something different. For example, if I change the interior ones to circular just by clicking in the properties box and hit apply, you'll see these have changed. That looks a little funny, right? So you probably wouldn't want to do that. But you might also want to try a square mullion, okay? The end mullions are rectangular, and this one they're defined as something different. So anyway, there's a number of options. Let's see, which one was this? This one? No, that's a bigger one. I think it was, oh yeah, that's what it was. Okay, we'll put it back to where it was. There we go. So curtain wall, the storefront system is a kind of quick and dirty way to create a simple pattern, okay? And what we want to do, though, is let's go back and let's go take this back to its original simple wall configuration. We want to do something that is even more custom than just creating a different pattern. To do that, you have to turn this into what's called a curtain wall, okay? And I'll go and I'll, again, select the wall, choose curtain wall type. And what you'll see is that right now there are no divisions in this wall. It's basically a giant sheet of glass. Okay. Now, when you have a curtain wall system, they behave a little bit differently from other systems. There are some things like attach the top and attach the bottom, which are familiar to us from any other wall type. However, what we're going to want to do now is add in some vertical mullions. To do that, you go here to the architecture ribbon and you'll see some buttons that we maybe haven't used before. The curtain grid is the one that we want to use to draw lines in it, and it's really a pretty simple system. You can follow the video or you can follow what I'm doing, but basically as you add grids, you see how it gives you a highlight of where it's going to put that grid, and I can center it or I can have specific dimensions, okay? And once the grid is in, it can be manipulated by just clicking and dragging on it. You can control, click, and drag and make a copy, okay? And they can be nudged. Obviously, this is a horizontal one, so it's going left and right. So what if you want to have an angled mullion? Well, you know, there is unfortunately not a lot of easy ways to do this. I'm going to stick a horizontal mullion in here while we're at it. Let me just add one more grid line into our, architecture curtain grid, not mullion. Let me just add one in here. Unfortunately, Revit is not so sporty about allowing you to manipulate the angle of these things. So if you wanted to go all deconstructivist, you would have to select the wall, and this is kind of the simple way. And you'll see the wall properties here. Actually, let me just clean this up and make this 2 feet off the ground and, oh, I don't know, about 7 feet off the ground for the height. Apply. What I can also do is change the angle of the vertical and horizontal grid. Let me close this so you can see this a little better. I can change the vertical grid to some angle, let's say 15 degrees, and apply. And you see how the vertical grid changes. Unfortunately, they all change. You can't do one at a time. Same with the horizontal grid. We'll make that 15 also, just for the heck of it. Here, let's make it minus 15 so it's more dynamic. Whoa, yeah. Each of these grids is still manipulatable, so you can click and drag it, you can nudge it, you can knock yourself out. And the frame, of course, remains as drawn. If you get more than one mullion, though, each new one is going to come in basically the same way. If I come in here and go curtain grid and try and draw a horizontal one, it's going to draw another one parallel to the first one. So for you super advanced students who want to show off your skills, there's really only one way that I know to be able to get multiple grid angles out of these things. I'm going to go and, I guess I need to crop away this model a little bit. By the way, you'll notice I like to work a lot in this section view. Not everybody likes working in this view. Elevation or a true section as opposed to this cutaway view. I just find that I often want to go like, where does that look like in 3D? So I like having that available to me. Not everybody likes that. So anyway, if I wanted to have multiple angles here, first of all, if you take the wall and shorten it, and then I'm going to Control click and drag up or drag over a copy here. It will give me a warning message that the walls overlap, and that's okay. I'm willing to put up with that. We'll take one of these walls here. I'll take this one, and I'll stretch it up, and you can see it's making a copy of or it has made a copy of the original one, including the mullion location. In this second one, I can come in and change the angles here. Let me just scroll down in the list here, and we'll make this one 15 degrees, and the vertical ones we'll make them minus 15 or something like that, and apply. So you can see how now we have two different curtain walls with a lot of funky business happening, and again, each line can be edited independently. It's just that we haven't achieved the full randomness that I was hoping for to get that third one to change, or if you just want to change the profile of the wall to be something non-rectilinear, you could come in here, and in this case, I'm just going to, I'll leave it there. What you can do is you can choose this option to edit the profile. Okay, and I'll leave my mouse over this for a second. The basic idea is you can take a rectilinear wall and make it not so rectilinear. And what I'll do, I'll drag this guy up. It will tell me your boundary is no longer continuous. The constraints are not satisfied. Remove those constraints. Unshackle yourself from the box that is boring design. Okay. And in fact, you can even make this, curvy or something like that if you so desired. But our point here is that we can create a kind of random angle. So I'm in a sketch mode, which I need to exit before I can continue with other things. What you see, I now have two curtain walls. They each have different angles for the interior mullions. And the exterior, the profile of those walls also has an angle. Okay, drag this up. And again, for those of you who are feeling more adventuresome, you can really have a lot of fun here. I'll even add in, hey, cut that out. I guess it doesn't want to go that way, does it? All right, here, we'll use this guy. There we go. And we'll get ourselves a really broken glass effect. I guess it doesn't want to go that way. All right, fine. Don't go that way. Anyway, now what you see is we have multiple angles, 3 different angles for the horizontals. So we really have a pretty funky window. Okay, but what's nice is that these retain their identity as curtain walls. You know, I can still change the base height if I wanted. Okay, whoops. Oh, except I deleted that. Don't do that. I can change the base height. It still accepts, you know, input that is data-based. Oh, except I somehow moved that guy up here. Well, let's just move it back up. So they are really still very flexible. Keep doing that. Not easy. Okay, so there we go. We have our nice custom curtain wall. You might say, well, what about the mullions? I don't see any mullions on here, Professor Brody. Mullions are actually pretty simple. Let me go back to this front view, zoom in a little bit. If you go to the architecture ribbon and go to the mullion tool, you can click on mullion. Of course, this wants me to save the project. Please save the project. Save early, save often is my philosophy. Anyway, the mullion tool has whatever mullions are available in your project. Okay, so I believe the storefront system used this kind of chunky system. Interior mullions are not quite so big. Anyway, sorry, I just started clicking. Choose the one that you want, and what it will do is it will add it to the segments that you click on, but you can also tell it to choose it, select all grid lines. If you do that, like magic, all the grid lines will be selected. Now, of course, we have a double curtain wall here because of the funky way that I created this thing, so we're going to have to come in and delete one of these extra guys, so it's going to cause us a little bit of a headache here. Probably the best thing to do. Whoops, let me get out of the sketch mode. Double clicking on the wall gets you out of the sketch mode. What I'll have to do, I'll have to come in and select the individual curtain wall if I can get that thing, and delete that single mullion. Okay, so I'm going to leave it in there for now. Now, you might say, well, that's all fine and dandy, but that thing is not in the wall, even though it looks really cool. You know, and actually, now that I look at it, I like it as a kind of thicker, branchy thing. Anyway, how do you get that thing in the wall? Well, the trick is, let me go to the front view again and zoom in. What we need to do is cut a hole in this back wall and let this window into that hole. Okay. Now, there's a couple ways you could do it. I could just go to floor plan. Let me just call up my project browser here again and go to level 2, and I could just shorten this wall. However, I do happen to know that this wall goes all the way from the first floor up to the roof. So if I shorten it, it will shorten it on the first floor as well. So, and you know, to get around that, I'd have to draw 2 walls, and one on the first floor, one on the second floor, and then you'd see a gap in the middle on this. You know, it would be kind of a mess. So an easier option, let's go back to our default 3D view. An easier option is to take this exterior wall and basically create an opening. Okay, so I'll just click this opening tool, and it's basically a rectangular opening. Okay. And allow the video to play out, but you can create a rectangular opening in basically any kind of wall. Let me just zoom in on this little fella here. So I have the wall selected, click wall opening. It says, where do you want the wall opening to be? You draw it in. You can select the opening, by the way. Here it is. It's an object. See how I can kind of drag it. And this is basically the same as the floor opening tool that we created earlier when we added the stair onto the project. Okay, so there you go. You've created the opening. We have the window with the frame. It's just a matter of oh well, let me zoom out so you can see what we have done. What have we done? We have created an opening here. And now it's just a matter of getting these two curtain walls here. Whoops. Grab the curtain walls. Probably easier to do this one in plan, actually. There we go. Drag those guys. And now it's just a matter of moving them in place. Now remember, I used this profile of this wall as a reference, so you're going to want to make sure you move these absolutely vertically. Don't move them off at an angle, because you'll get all sorts of problems. Now, often when you move them into place, you'll get a warning that says that they are overlapping walls. Here, let me hit undo. Mine did not do that. However, one thing that mine did do, if you notice, when I created this wall, there's this frame, which we can see in plan. It's the kind of mullion that I created. This mullion actually wants to go to the middle, and I wasn't paying attention when I moved it. And so I need to grab this thing and zoom in on the frame where it's going to go and make sure that I place it inside the wall. And the reason is, what Revit likes to do when it has two walls on top of each other, it kind of glues them together. So I'm nudging this. See how the whole kit and caboodle moves? The actually three walls all move together, which is kind of annoying, frankly. But basically, that's the problem. So make sure you get that thing in the right spot beforehand. You can still come in and make some editorial changes. Whoops! Oh, I guess I missed this guy. Huh? Sorry, you're left behind. Help me, help me. Anyway, we'll want to move that guy into position as well. So there you go. You have it. There is also a final, even more complicated way that you can create an irregular shape to the window, which is to say an irregular boundary. Curtain walls don't like that. Okay, so you'd want to, in order to do that, you're going to have basically a totally custom window, but that's way more complicated. We'll get to that when we go and talk about custom families. Okay, for now, leave it to be said that you can have a rectangular window in a rectangular opening using a curtain wall that can be pretty fun, but it's fairly straightforward to create. One really annoying thing about curtain walls is the way that they handle doors. Now you can see here I've created this custom window, and again, as I mentioned, the advanced students may want to try this, trying to get some angled pieces to their windows. For those of you who are just like, I'm just going to use the storefront and call it a day, it's still not quite so easy. What I'm going to do for my wall here is I'm going to add in a door. I'll just go to the door tool, and I'm going to put the door off to the side here. It is possible to put in a door into a curtain wall. Won't work so great for my curtain wall because mine's all funky. But if you have just a regular storefront system, you might say, well, why don't I just go to the door tool and try and put it in? It won't work. Curtain walls just don't take doors. Okay, the way they work is each of these subdivisions is called a curtain panel, and each of those panels can be converted into a door. Okay, and the way you do it, first of all, you kind of helps to know how big a door is. You have to resize the curtain panels to be the size of the door that you want. So you have to go into your select the wall, curtain wall, choose edit type, and make sure that the vertical grid is spaced some typical door dimension. Doors are typically 3 feet, okay? So making the vertical spacing a little smaller will give you what usually ends up being a door, okay? You can force it to be a fixed distance, by the way. This is a small example here, but if I do that, now I've got 3-foot panels here. Okay, you can also, there's a couple of other options. Here you can have no spacing, which gets rid of them all, or the maximum spacing or the minimum spacing is the dimension you specify. But I'm going to adjust this for the mullion size so I have a little space. Anyway, the vertical is the same way. 8 feet, pretty tall for a door, fine with me, but some of you might even want it taller. But a typical door is going to be 6'8", There's no magic to why a typical door is 6'8". It just is. Whoops. Anyway, so there you go. You have your curtain wall. How are we going to convert one of these panels into a door? Well, basically, the trick here, two tricks. First of all, you can't use any of the regular doors. You have to go to the Insert menu, Load Family, go to Doors, like you would normally, and you have to find one of these curtain wall doors, either a double one or just a single one, okay? And these are the only ones you're allowed to use in a curtain wall. You can't use any of our other ones. And now it's in the project. Now what we need to do is select, not the whole thing. See how I've got the whole thing? What I want to do is grab just one of these panels. So I'm going to move my mouse over the edge of the panel. And maybe I'll zoom in a little so you can see what's going on. And as I hit Tab, it will select different piece. See how it says curtain panels? Although I actually want this one here. So let's see if we can get this one here. Hit Tab until we get what we want. All right, well, we'll convert that one to a door. What you can do is select the object. Because I'm using a system, it's locked. Locking it in Revit world is called pinning. So I just tap the little pin. Now it's unlocked. And you see how here how it says System Panel Glazed? I can change that in the Properties menu to Curtain Wall Single Glass Door. And what you'll see is, well, it doesn't look any different, frankly, because a glass curtain wall looks about the same. I'm going to just, I have to unlock this bottom bit so that now it's a door. If we go to Plan View, it should look like a door. Okay, see, there we go. It's a door. And like other doors, we can change its handing in or out, flip it in or out. Again, you can only do that in Plan. I'll just have this come in. For those of you who are playing along at home, I will remind you again, try the simple door as a way to start, or the simple storefront system as a start. But if you're feeling adventuresome, absolutely try the more custom thing, or just adding a door into your curtain wall system. Okay, so there you go. That is, let's go away, little warning message. That's it for fancy walls for today. Let's now talk a little bit about adding components. Okay, components, if you remember, and I'm sure you do, are over here in the architecture ribbon, and placing component pretty straightforward. And there are a number of online sources for Revit components, including Form Fonts, which is on the desktops, which has some nice ones. Also Revit City, which has a lot of lame ones, but at least it has some. And then there's bimobjects.com. There's, I'm sure, a couple of good Google searchers can probably find out some additional sites. What I thought I'd mention as you're adding stuff to your project, and our projects, we don't need a whole lot other than some benches, some seating. We're going to have a front desk. We're going to have some conference room seating. So we don't need a huge amount of furniture, but it is nice to have good-looking furniture. And you can go to Steelcase or somewhere like that to get some really gorgeous stuff. What I will show you is that you can also import stuff from SketchUp. And if you just go to the Insert menu, okay, up here at the top, what you'll see is that there are a number of options here, and I believe we've talked about inserting images, but you can link a CAD file. And let's say you have a SketchUp whiz in your office, or you just want an object that's unusual. You can often find these things in the SketchUp 3D warehouse pretty quickly. Maybe they aren't going to render so great, and maybe later on in the project you're going to change them. But they are really great for kind of getting things going quickly. So I'm going to just choose Link CAD. Okay, and what you'll see when I do that, that there are a number of different file types that Revit accepts. So again, as you're surfing the web and you go to turbosquid.com or something like that, you might get some file formats that are in these other flavors. But SketchUp is handy enough. Yeah, as you're importing these CAD files, a couple things to consider. So I've downloaded this SketchUp file. I didn't really pay attention to the version that it was in or anything like that. Sometimes you'll find that SketchUp files just will not come into your Revit file. But a couple settings will help out. First of all, choosing black and white instead of those wacky SketchUp colors is helpful. The other thing, make sure you choose the level that is appropriate to your project. And finally, Revit can automatically place the object for you. I don't like to do that because some of these SketchUp files, you just don't know what their scoop is. You don't know where the origin is or any of that. So I choose manual center. And what that will do is it will give me control of where the object is placed, and the center of the object is where it will be grabbed by. Okay. Now I happen to know this file is not going to work because I believe it's the wrong file format. I'll click open. Let's see what happens. Oh, yep. See, it will give me a warning message. And this sometimes happens. If this does happen to you, and I wanted to show this as an example, go to your SketchUp file, and I'll just switch over to SketchUp real quick. Here's the sculpture. Very exciting stuff. Make sure, first of all, you can choose File, Save As, and when you save as, you can choose an older version of SketchUp. This sometimes helps. What I will do sometimes also is I will export a 3D model from SketchUp. Now I have the Pro version, so if you have the, if you're just working off of the web-based version, you will have to go to one of the desktops for this. Anyway, you can choose an AutoCAD file, and just to be sure, I click the options and I choose an old AutoCAD file. So we're talking release 14 is really old. It won't really affect the geometry at all. Sometimes that helps. So let me go back to Revit here, good old Revit. And I'll try linking the file, but this time I'm going to choose an AutoCAD file format. Here's the exported drawing that I created. Again, manual and center, black and white for the colors, click open, and there it is, the file comes right in. Okay, and we can see it here in our 3D view. Very exciting stuff. Oh, except it's on the first floor, I think. Oh yeah, there it is. Very nice. So for our project, sometimes complex geometry, you can get kind of a quick go by just grabbing something off of SketchUp. And again, you know, I have a fondness for SketchUp, which I just can't resist. Anyway, all right, so there you go. You've got some CAD objects that you can bring in. Now, what if you want to put in a picture? Well, unfortunately, when you insert pictures here from Revit's insert menu, they are actually not really good for going into elevation view. So if I wanted to hang a painting on the wall, for example, what I would have to do, first of all, you can insert images on the walls, but they have to be created in a different. Walls are the solution to our problem. If we're here on the insert menu, there's an option for placing a decal. Now, we haven't created any yet, and I'll let the little video run out, but basically the simplest way to create a decal is you go here, click the down arrow, and choose decal types. And right now there aren't any, so we're going to make a new one. There's a little button down here with a pretty little star on it that says create new decal, and I'll call it painting number 1. And what we'll want to do is choose an image file. So over here in the settings menu, remember those 3 dots indicate a file. Oh, hey, let's use our Rabbit file. I'm so happy with my Rabbit. Any valid image file is a possibility. You can control certain features of it. For example, if it's reflective or transparent, if it's glossy, you can even make it illuminated, which means it glows. Okay, so that would be great for a TV screen. And you can have a bump pattern, which makes it look bumpy, believe it or not. There are also the possibility for cutout patterns, which we'll get to at some other point. So anyway, whoa, did I create a new one? Let's see, here we go. Let's go to place decal. I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. You click on the wall to place the decal, and you might say, that really does not look like the rabbit. Well, first of all, what happens is until you tell Revit to display things like images, images will show up as kind of these proxy boxes. Okay. If we want to see if that decal worked, we can click on our display options and choose realistic. And with any luck, we'll see our little rabbit on the wall. Okay, there are very few options once the image is in the file. Very few options for fiddling around with it. But this is a really quick way to get a painting onto a wall. Okay, and I believe you can put these onto the floors. And when you're in the decal menu, you can create any number of decals. You can see there's plenty of space here for all sorts of new decals. Okay, so there we go. We have images, we have decals, so our model is really cooking along. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is ceilings, okay? And let's go to one of our ceiling plans. Go down here to, whoops, that's not a ceiling plan, that's a 3D view, which has really got a funky little spaghetti-like image in there. How about that? All right, let's go down to our first floor, okay? Ceilings are a little tricky. And one of the reasons that they're tricky is because even though they seem like they're easy to draw, you want to put lighting in your project, but often it's hard to do in the ceiling view. Now, here we are on the first floor. A couple of things to notice. First of all, what's this doing on the ceiling? Why is that in there? This is an imported object, if you remember. Imported objects, particularly SketchUp and AutoCAD objects, they have this annoying habit of kind of showing up where they're uninvited, showing up at parties where they shouldn't be. What you'll want to do is hide that guy. So right-click on it, choose Hide in View. I'm just going to do Elements, just to be sure. I don't know everything that's in here. Same with these guys. You can use Control to select more than one of these components. These are actually the people, if you remember. And I can hide those objects as well. Okay, not that they are so upsetting to me, but just we don't need them in the ceiling plan. Now, the easiest thing to do when you want to put in a ceiling, as we have learned earlier, is you go to the architecture ribbon and you click the ceiling button. Okay, and I'm going to put in one of the standard ones, a 2x2 ceiling, just to show you. Now remember that we have these beams that we want to cover up, so maybe I'm going to drop this ceiling down to 10 feet. Okay, and again, see how Revit is so happy. It loves putting ceilings in. And there we go. There's my 2x2 ceiling. Now, what about this space? See how it gives me the entire space? Well, what if I just want like a ceiling that is kind of like an island floating? Well, remember, we can sketch a ceiling, and I'll draw it as a rectangle. Okay. Anytime you have a space where you don't want Revit to cover the entire ceiling with the entire surface of the ceiling with ceiling systems, you'll want to choose the sketch option. So anyway, I'm going to do the GWB on metal stud option, and we'll put this up at 12 feet for now. Or well, actually, no, I guess we do want it at 10 feet, don't we? Okay, there we go. Apply. Click the checkbox. Lovely, lovely ceilings. And to put lighting into our project, well, if you have ceilings, it's pretty darn easy. You just go to Architecture, Component, okay? And remember, there's this Place Component option. You can just click on the button. The trick is, do we have any lighting in our project? And actually, I have no idea if we have any lighting in our project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load in some lighting. And you'll probably can guess that it's in the lighting folder here, and architectural. Internal, obviously we're inside. And Revit gives you these gorgeous previews. Actually, they're completely lame, but whatever. Let's grab a couple of them. Here's a pendant lamp. Here is a torchère lamp. What other fun ones do we have? And let's go with a sconce, uplight, and let's go with a downlight spot. Okay? All right, so we can choose all these different lights. And by the way, I was holding down Control to select more than one. When you do that, they all load into your project. This can actually cause a little bit of delay. And what you'll see, first of all, it has chosen the pendant mounted lamp first. Although interesting enough, it looks like it's upside down. But pendant mounted lamps typically go on ceilings. Okay, so you see how as I move my mouse over the ceiling, I can click to place the object. Now, it's telling me that's not visible. Something tells me there's something wrong with that fixture. It's probably on the floor. So let me go to my, my floor plan, and we'll create a new view here of this floor plan. In fact, oh yeah, there it is right there. Let's see what that little puppy looks like. And that is the strangest looking light fixture I've ever seen. So rule number one is not all components are created equal, and something is awry with this one. Okay, it's facing the wrong way. It may still light up, but you can see that it's facing not where we expected the pendant. And we'll learn when we talk about customizing families how to manipulate that in greater detail. For now, needless to say, you can't really rotate this thing. It doesn't work that way. So we're just going to have to delete it. Okay. You can, by the way, in your street level, in your floor plan view, you can insert lighting components that are meant to be seen in floor plan. So I believe there was a torchère in there. Let's go see if we can find that. Not toilet. Maybe I didn't get that torchère. Let's see. Pendant. Oh, there we go. Okay. So you can see how it's easy enough to stick the light fixture in this view. It's meant to be seen in that view. And in fact, if we go to our 3D view, with any luck, we'll see this lovely torchère in the foreground. Okay. Then if we go to our street level ceiling plan, it disappears. Okay. It's still there, and you noted there were some dimensions there, but it's just not visible. Anyway, and in the ceiling plan, of course, you want to put in light fixtures that are meant for the ceiling plan. I thought that pendant might do it for us, but apparently not. And here we can choose a downlight. These are surface-mounted downlights, which are great for galleries. Okay. And what you'll see, these are kind of rectangular fixtures. Light comes out of one side. Let me zoom in on this guy here so you can see it a little better. Light comes out of it in a pattern, a kind of a spotlight. So these guys can be rotated to aim on your light fixtures. On your paintings. The way you might say, well, how do I know which way they're supposed to go? What we need to do is show the light source. So I'm going to go to my visibility and graphic overrides. Click edit here. I'll go down to my light source. Lighting to fixtures. And what you'll see, there's a little plus sign. And Revit doesn't like to show you the light source, partly because it just makes for a lot of lines on your drawing. I'll click apply and OK. And you can kind of see these yellow lines here. This is the light source for these different fixtures. Oh, these are facing straight down. Oh, that's why they look like they're facing straight down, because they are facing straight down. Let's go with a 60-degree tilt. Now you can see the light source is kind of at a cone. By the way, I sometimes will change. I'll go to my visibility and graphic overrides, and I'll change the color of the light source here. There's a way to override the color of the line. Just click where it says lines under projection surface. And let's make the color something we can see a little better. Again, some of you, your monitors may be just fine, and you may have better eyesight than me. But this allows me to see these little puppies a little better. Anyway, all right, so here we go. Here's my fixture, and you can kind of see where it's pointing. It's not a perfect way to aim it, but you absolutely can take it and take that cone and shine it towards, well, I guess I'm shining it towards the door, okay? Obviously, with all these lights in here, it can pretty quickly get a little disturbing trying to navigate through the model with all these lights. So I pretty quickly will turn off the light sources just to make my life a little bit clearer. But there's no way to aim the lights otherwise. Okay, it's just It's just the way that you've got to do it. Now you might say, what if I want a fixture hanging off the beam? Easy enough. Go to Component and choose whichever fixture that you want. I stick with the 120 volt ones. Why do I do that? Because you should be consistent. It is possible to use 277 volts. Anyway, you see how my light source, my light fixture, will go and attach to the beam. Because if you remember, we created these beams. These are basically ceiling components, okay? So I can aim this. I could aim it at the column, for example, if I wanted to light up the column. Now the trick is, if I wanted to create another one, and I'm just going to use the Create Similar button, see how it gives me that little No Light Fixtures Allowed Here button? This is the big problem that Revit has. You can't stick light fixtures willy-nilly anywhere in your project. Okay, so if you want to put it here up in this on the existing structure, for now you're just going to have to draw a ceiling up there, hugging tight to the existing structure. And if you think about it, you'd need to run wires on the surface of this existing structure if you wanted to put lighting up there anyway. Okay, so just note, you're allowed to put fixtures in ceilings, not in non-ceilings, unless you create a light fixture which is a non-hosted light fixture. And hosting means it's connected to a certain correct kind of class of objects. And in this case, light fixtures typically are hosted by walls or ceilings. Now you might say, walls, when do you have light fixtures on walls? I will show you. If I go to Component and I try and place that wall sconce, which I can't remember what it's called, but if I could remember what it was called, I thought it was, maybe it's just called sconce. Let's go down here. Scaly, sconce, oh, here we go. Sconce. If you click on sconce, you see it won't go into the existing structure, it won't go into the roof, but it will go on the wall. See how it says click on wall to place instance. And it's just like a toilet in this way. And sometimes sconces will not show up in ceiling plan, and the reason is because they're not visible in ceiling plan, they're too low. Okay, typically they will though. So there you go. You've got some pretty interesting things that you can do with your ceilings. Okay. Lastly, if you want a funky ceiling that still accepts lights, you can edit your ceiling. I just double click on it to edit it. And you can put in what's called a slope arrow. And we may have talked about this with roofs, but if you click on slope arrow, I'll just draw it from one end of the ceiling to the other. Slope arrow, it's basically a non-visible line that defines how much the ceiling slopes. So at the tail of this thing, maybe we want this to go down, I don't know, 2 feet. This may actually look a little funny. And the height offset, stretch this out so you can read it. At the head and the tail, you can control those just by changing the numbers. Anyway, I'll click the checkbox. Still looks like a ceiling, still accepts components. Okay, but if we were to take a look at this thing, and let me go and set up a perspective view so we can see what this strange creation that we have made looks like. Go to camera. And you know, in each of your projects, you do not have to have a sloped ceiling, but what I'm saying is that this is the more open-ended part of the class. You absolutely should have ceilings in your project. You have to have lighting because it's a gallery, but you can have that lighting in any sort of configuration. And again, you can see the number of things we've created here with a wall sconce, lighting on this sloped thing, ceiling, and then lighting up here on the beam. And this looks a little low to me, so I'm going to move it up to 12 feet because it's a little disturbing. People are going to jump up on that thing. So anyway, all right, there we go. There's reflected ceiling plans in a nutshell. This should give you enough information to, whoops, I don't know what's going on there, enough information that you should be able to generate some of the basic elements of your project, including inserting sculptures, inserting images, and creating the conference room window upstairs on the second floor, And next time we'll learn about creating some custom stairs and also some schedules and other goodies. But for now, that should give you enough to get started.